What's up, Internet? It is the end of the 7th day here in Harvest, finally. This is going to cover both day 6 and day 7, because I didn't have a chance to make another video last night. But despite the fact we've had pretty terrible luck this league as far as drops go, we finally started making some money in the past couple of days with crafting and a few lucky drops. Managed to get our 6th link. We're still in pretty rough shape, I think, as far as where I'd normally be a week into the league. But it hasn't really slowed me down too much otherwise, I haven't been focusing as heavily on Atlas progression as I might have normally been. We're still at 121 at this point. We just have some post-Sirus watchstones to go pick off for our last few regions here. We're level 95, just barely. I think we've died twice. Yeah, 2 deaths total. One was like a nasty research June mission that deleted me pretty hard. I think it was Tora. And then once to Sirus, who did a nice little cute triple teleport thing on me that I hadn't seen. But either way, my single target DPS is pretty low, like I said, relative to where I'd normally be getting the Sirus for the first time, so I kind of felt like one death was going to happen. I did want to talk a little bit about glancing blows and stuff some more. We'll do a walk and talk again, just from random red map we've got. Another thing we did accomplish today, we killed a Sirus for the first time, and then we also killed Oshabi, which is the final boss of the Harvest League. I'll put a link to like the highlight from the stream earlier when that happened if you want to watch the fight in its entirety. I will say it's an okay fight. She has a lot of health, it seems like, but not the most interesting fight in the world, and it seemed a little bit buggy to me. I noticed that if you watch the highlight, I think twice I take 2 really large hits during that fight. I don't die during the fight, but they're pretty nasty, and I still don't really know what actually hit me. I have a feeling that something didn't load. Like, it wasn't loading the spell effects for those particular attacks until she used them the first time. So it just kind of hit me. And that was on a tier 14 map. You actually have to do that mission in a map. You can't do the final boss from your hideout. I guess that's sort of their way of making sure you have limited portals. So you'll want to do that final boss on a map that you like haven't used up any portals on a trade or something, just in case she does kill you and you got to get back. When we get out of here, I'll show you the gloves. I got some weird, like, chaos gloves that stack Wither, but they actually increase your elemental damage. I'm not entirely sure what they would be used for. I will say that now that she's gone, our little Bulbasaur is gone here. She didn't come back, right? I haven't seen any sign of her since. I don't know if I need to grow another tier 4 to spawn her again in the middle, or what. So I don't know how to trigger the boss fight again, basically. I will say that today they released a hotfix for Harvest that significantly increased the amount of tier 1 seeds that you get from higher tier maps. You can see here we got, what, 23 blue seeds from that. And this is like a tier 13, I think. It seemed like a straight doubling to me when you got up into like the tier 14 to 16 range. So there's a lot more tier 1s, which will obviously result in a lot more tier 2 seeds and up. There also was a fix to some craft weightings. It seemed like it was unintentionally too hard to get some of the like augment and targeted annul crafts between the map tiers. Like when you start maps and when you get to red maps, that range of maps was not giving you those options here. I don't think I saw it at all until I got back into red maps. But it seems to be fixed now, and I've already seen a few of the targeted annuls. I think I benched them. I've got 9 of these things now. Once you start getting into the tier 3 seeds and stuff, they become pretty easy to craft. I think all 3 of these were the ones that I got from a big tier 3 plot that I had that dropped like tier 4s or something. Which were all purple, and I've already done purple, so I just wound up putting those up for trade. But we have a bunch of different crafts saved at this point for later harvest crafts. Like there's an augment, an item with a new life modifier with lucky values, which is basically just a targeted life exalt slam. And they've got remove a random cold for a new cold, which I might use later for some wand crafting shenanigans. This one's just a new one that I haven't used yet. I'm still personally like really enjoying this league. I hope they continue to improve it, and I hope these kind of changes, get some more people back. I know they have some more changes planned for next week. They've already made a post about that. They also said that next week that there's going to be some significant buffs to cluster jewels, which is great because that is exactly what I think I was most annoyed with so far. Basically, in the new patch, next week, all medium clusters are going to have 1 jewel socket, but the jewel socket will no longer take up an affix down in the stats. It'll be like a fixed part of the medium cluster jewel enchant itself. So we'll be able to roll another affix onto mediums and larges. Larges will always have 2 jewel sockets in the enchant, like where it says adds 4 passive skills. All of them will always have 2 jewel sockets, and all mediums will always have 1 jewel socket. They also did state that if you vendor, so like when the new patch comes out next week or whenever it is, if you vendor a current jewel, you will get back a version of that jewel with the new rules. So if you vendor a large, it'll give you back the exact same jewel, but it'll basically remove that jewel affix from the prefix suffix pool, and it'll basically build it into the enchant. So what you can do, I think we will, let's get our metamorph done here really quick. What you can do right now is basically buy cluster jewels that don't have jewel sockets, but have the amount of passive points in them, right? Like you could buy a 4 or a 5 medium or a 8-point large that didn't roll well, but just rolled with the right item level. For this build, by the way, I would say if you want a large cold cluster, get one in the level 68 to 74 range, because there's only 2 notables that are specific to item level 75 and up, and neither of them are usable for this build. And there's a huge difference between a large that is 75 and up and in that 68 74 range. So just buy up an 8-point large cold cluster that's at least level 68, somewhere between 68 and 74. And when you vendor that gem in the new patch, we still are missing a lot of these things. You can just vendor it and basically get a large back with a guaranteed 2 jewel sockets. And crafting on that should be a little bit easier, especially with the harvest, like cold weighted stuff. All told, I don't think I'm actually going to take Freezing Pulse to my typical gear level. Like usually I'll play the build to like 98 or 99. I haven't totally decided, but right now I'm leaning towards just moving on. Like we got the harvest boss down in the first week, which is the main thing I wanted to do. And we got our first Sirus kill of the league on pretty bad single target, honestly. Glancing Blows has it's only 3 points in the tree, but getting back Onslaught for the movement speed also means that cold conduction is sort of out of the question early on. So it's a little bit painful in that sense. But so I might, if I come back to this character, I might just go back to the non-glancing blows version. Oh, he's got a lot of projectiles. Just because I'm used to playing this build without glancing blows and that level of mitigation for what, like a year now or something. But I do think that it's still pretty reasonable to get glancing blows and do the sleepless sentries. You don't technically even need to do sleepless sentries, okay? Like, you could come out into cold conduction and it would be a slight DPS increase, but the problem is that not having onslaught means you're also out 20% movement speed. And to me, that's like a non-starter. I think giving up another 20% movement speed for map clear and stuff is just not wise. You still spend too much of your time mapping, I think, for that to be reasonable. But this sort of plan with glancing blows and Rumi's concoction, and maybe even coming up here into arcane guarding for more spell block. Whoops. This line here is a pretty good route if you really want to play this build in hardcore. It really does help make you a lot more survivable, and you can even chuck Vol Grace on top of that. But yeah, I think at this point, just because I've had such bad luck, and this character is already pretty behind in terms of gear progression, my inclination is probably to just take my current resources, and I think we'll probably start a Toxic Rain Trickster or something for the second character of the league. That's my current thinking. We might make a pit stop for a couple of days into Diablo 3 to try that new Demon Hunter set, but I'm less inclined to do that, honestly, because I know that it won't last me more than a couple of days. And I am pretty interested in trying a Toxic Rain Trickster. I've been thinking about that for a while. And it seems like good timing, actually, because with these cluster jewel changes, it'll be a lot easier for me to get the cluster jewels that build definitely wants. That build is going to want 2 different large clusters. And that was going to be a pain, for sure, to make with the way that cluster jewels currently roll. Anyway, I think this is going to wrap up the sort of League Start video series, unless I come across something in particular that I want to talk about. So I'll still be streaming if you want to come by and ask me for gear checks or general advice or just want to chat. I typically stream in the evenings, starting around like 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific. Lately it's been like closer to 5:30, but it's Twitch TV/Wallach TV. And I think the next time you see me, I'll probably be on a Trickster, but build's still exactly where it needs to be. I'm still enjoying the league. Cluster changes will definitely make things easier. And I'll see you again if I can think of anything that needs a video. We may also take some time, now that I think about it, to make that sort of League Start video series and simulate a League Start with Holy Flame Totem, just to add that to those little act by act videos into the leveling tip section, so people can see the sort of natural leveling progression and any of the small sort of tips and decisions that you might make at League Start that I simply can't fit into a text guide. So that sounds fun. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I'll see you guys on Twitch or in the next video. Peace.